Yes, sir.
I believe had you concluded your direct examination?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I have no questions of the witness.
Okay.
State calls Dave Johnson.
We solemnly swear or affirm that we will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We shall answer unto God and unto the word. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Would you please state your name?
David Johnson,
Can you spell your last name for us?
Johnsson,
Sir, where do you work?
Minuteman Press on Beachmont Avenue,
And how long have you been working for Minuteman Press on Beachmont Avenue?
25 and a half years.
Sir, I don't want to go through your 25 and a half years of work, but I want to draw your attention back to March and April of 2020.
Okay.
Do you recall your office printing mailers for David Uible?
I do.
We had your employer, excuse me, who is your employer? Who's your boss?
Kendall Lemley.
We talked to him yesterday, so we don't need to go through everything that he went through. But what I want to clarify is, did Kendall Lemley tell you to do anything with regard to the files you possessed for your work for David Uible?
Yes, he did.
And what did he tell you?
Told me to trash them, to destroy them.
To destroy them?
Yes.
Did he tell you why that you were to destroy them?
Objection.
Your Honor, I think there was an objection.
No,
Object to any
thank you very much.
to any further explanation.
Your Honor, it's not hearsay. It's hearsay?
Yes, it is.
It's not hearsay. This is an 801D1 exception. It's a statement of a co-conspirator.
Yeah, objection to the rule.
So I'm going to ask the question again. He told you to destroy all the evidence. Why did he tell you to destroy all the evidence?
Didn't really give a reason except that he was instructed by Mr. Uible to do so or requested.
So David Uible asked him, and thus he asked you to destroy the evidence.
That's correct.
When did...
No, actually, it is hearsay. I thought that this was Mr. Uible talking directly to him.
Your Honor, it's... Mr. Lemley is a co-conspirator. Thus, it's not hearsay. This is not an exception. This is an 801D1, I think. 801D... 2D. Nope. D2E. It's a statement by a co-conspirator during and in furtherance of the conspiracy. Although the state believes that Mr. Lemley and Mr. Johnson are innocent and did not have the same criminal intent at the time they were acting in furtherance of the conspiracy to tamper with records, tamper with the evidence.
And your response to that?
I have no response.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, sir. I apologize. I can't remember if you actually answered the question or not, so I'm going to ask one more time. I'm going to summarize it a little bit. You mentioned that you deleted records.
Yes.
You deleted them because your employer told you to destroy the files that you had for David Uible.
That's correct.
Did he mention who told him or why he was instructing you to destroy that evidence?
He told me that Mr. Uible requested that we do so.
Okay. Now, with regard to the timing of this, do you know the date off the top of your head when your boss told you this?
I don't. I know that it was early in the lockdown phase of the pandemic.
We're talking 18 months ago, so I get it. So I'm going to offer a date to maybe help you correspond when that happens.
He's indicated he doesn't know.
Sustained.
Do you recall Detective Berger coming to your office?
Yes, I do.
In relation to Detective Berger's visit to your office, do you remember when Kendall Emily told you that David Uible had told you to destroy the evidence?
Objection.
Your Honor.
Overruled.
It was within a day, 2 days prior to the detective coming to the shop.
Within a day or two.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember what kind of jobs you did for David Uible?
It was a postcard, a mailer.
Did you do any other work for him?
We've done other, yes, we've done a different type of postcard for him.
Did you destroy everything or just the stuff regarding the postcard?
Just the one 4x6 postcard.
That's all I have. Thank you.
I have no question.
Sir, you can step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
State calls Detective Major Bernard Berger.
You solemnly swear affirming to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer unto God and unto the Holy Spirit.
Good morning.
Morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for us?
Bernard Allen Berger Jr. Last name is spelled Boerger.
Looks like you work for the sheriff's office. How are you currently employed?
Currently, I am the jail administrator. I hold the rank of major.
How long have you been with the sheriff's office?
This is since December of 2000. It's almost 21 years.
Prior to your role as a major in charge of the jail, what did you do for the sheriff's office?
My former assignment was I was the detective sergeant for investigations.
I want to talk about some of your work as a detective sergeant in investigations. Do you remember being detailed a case involving David Uible in April of 2020?
I do.
How did that case come to you? Do you know?
So part of my responsibilities as the detective sergeant was that I reviewed all the reports that came to the sheriff's office, and then I would determine if they were assigned to a detective or to a deputy for further follow-up. So on, I believe it was April 7th, I received a report filed by Greg Simpson involving possible mail fraud.
So upon reviewing that, does that mean you assigned it yourself, or did someone ask you to work it?
So in discussions with the chief deputy and Captain Moran, my supervisors, it was determined that I would work the case myself.
Upon getting this complaint from Greg Simpson, being detailed this case, what do you do?
Well, this isn't the normal case or type of case that we usually handle. We're used to handling more property crime cases, sex offense related cases, personal crimes. There are times when we get cases that kind of fall, I don't really know what category to put them in, but not our typical cases. Things that occur within the county, other offices and stuff like that. So typically I would take on those types of cases.
So investigating potentially forged political mailers isn't necessarily in your repertoire of investigations.
That's correct.
So did you have to familiarize yourself with some of the parameters of what you might need to look into in this case?
I did.
What was one of the goals after getting a copy of this? Well, did you ever receive a copy of this postcard, this mailer?
I know that there's at least one postcard that I submitted into evidence, but throughout the investigation, I did see others.
So you've got this postcard. What are you trying to determine with regard to this postcard?
In simplest terms, I mean, my goal was just to find out who was responsible for printing those cards, paying for those cards, and distributing those cards.
So you're looking for who printed them, and then maybe by way of learning that, you could determine who paid for them?
Yes, sir.
So how do you go about looking for the printer of these postcards?
Well, initially, I thought it would be best to start with the Republican Party to find out who they had used previously to print off their documents. So that's where I began.
Talk to a Ken here.
I did.
Did your investigation ever require you to talk to David Uible?
Yes.
Why did you reach out to David Uible?
So in my inquiries, when I was calling around to find out, who was calling to get estimates and stuff like that, Mr. Uible was the only person that I was told had inquired about pricing for these mailers.
So you knew that, or suspected that he at least had asked about printing these mailers.
Yes.
And because of that, you wanted to talk to him?
Sure.
Well, before we talk about the conversation you had with Mr. Uible, were you also interested in trying to figure out how these were mailed in order to track down who might have sent them?
So again, this type of investigation was something I wasn't familiar with. I really had no idea what would be the best avenue. So I just had a lot of ideas on, what would lead me to the person who was responsible. One of the things I was told was that, and I didn't know this, but bulk mail in Cincinnati, I'm now familiar with that. It doesn't matter where you send a letter out; it all goes to Dalton Avenue. So I started with Dalton Avenue because it was suggested to me that if someone wanted to get these mail out quicker, they would go directly to Dalton Avenue, which is the hub, to send them out. And also, if you send out more than 5,000 pieces of mail that are the same thing, it's bulk mail, so that may be tracked. So that was one of the things I looked into.
So potentially this could have been bulk mail and might have been processed down at Dalton.
Potentially, but it turned out that wasn't the case.
Did you make a contact with someone down at the Dalton post office?
I did. It was a postal inspector, I believe, her last name was Yenger, Yenger. I also asked about the mail fraud statutes that I'm not familiar with, things like that, but I did have conversations with her, yes.
So let's talk about that conversation you had with David Uible. Why did you call him?
I believe it was on the 8th. It was the day after the report was made, and the day after I had spent a lot of time trying to just track down where the chaser cards may have come from. And as I stated, Mr. Uible was the only person that had inquired that I knew about purchasing these cards. So it was obvious to me that he was the person that I first needed to talk to see if he was the one that was responsible for these cards.
You mentioned the 8th. Did you get a hold of him on the 8th?
I'm not sure if it was the 8th or the 9th. I'd have, whatever my report would indicate. I believe I tried to call him on the 8th, and then maybe I got home on the 9th.
Your Honor, if I'm just simply going to refresh the witness, just specifically a police report, do you want me to put it up on the screen, or can I just hand him a copy of it?
Just hand a copy to him, I think. Would that be okay, Mr. Croswell, with you?
I'm sorry.
I don't care about that if you need the copy, but
It's not being admitted into evidence, so it shouldn't be shown to the trier of fact, but you can show it to him.
I was just wondering about the court protocol of COVID, if you wanted everything digital or just this
So
process.
you can use paper, that's fine.
yeah.
Showing you as part of the state exhibit 31, multiple page exhibit. Take a look at the front page right now.
Yes, sir.
We take a look at your report, help you refresh memory whether or not you reach out to David Uible, in fact, you did. You were able to talk to the person.
It would, because I spoke to so many different people in those short couple of days.
Take a look at that, and once you had a chance to read it, memory's refreshed, just look up it.
Yes, sir. So, April 8th, I attempted to contact Mr. Uible, and I left a voicemail.
What time was that? Did you call?
It says 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. So at 2 o'clock on April 8th, you tried to call him, didn't answer, said you left a voicemail.
Yes, sir.
What does a voicemail sound like coming from you?
I would have probably identified myself and just told Mr. Uible that I'd like to speak to him, needed to speak to him as soon as possible. I would have left my callback number for him.
So does he call you back?
I don't believe he called me back that day.
You called him again?
The next day, yes, sir.
So on April 9th, you gave him a call?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember about what time on April 9th you called him?
If I may refer to my report.
Yeah.
It includes. It says 10:19 hours to 10:19 a.m.
You want the report left on the stand, Mr. Croswell, or do you want Mr.?
Yes, I
Okay, that's fine.
had no objection if the report's.
Did you record that phone call?
Yes, sir.
Pull up what's marked as State's Exhibit 25. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play just the first few seconds of this to allow you to see if you can identify what it is.
I'll stipulate that's the tape statement on the 9th of October, the 9th of April.
Thank you. I'm still going to stop it just so we can identify voices. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, later this afternoon or something.
I heard the later this afternoon or something like that.
Yes, sir.
Whose voice was that?
Mr. Uible.
Say up to 2:30 or something, but is it something we can handle by phone?
Yeah, if you're willing to. I shut my door here. I'm sorry. I had to shut my office door here. It's just me that's on the phone here. So basically, you probably already heard about what's going on or why I need to call you, but
Actually, I just heard from Greg Simpson that I guess Slate Card went out to some of the voters, and Greg called me, and then he called me again yesterday. Greg seems to call me about every day.
right.
But yesterday he said that the sheriff's office has washed their hands of it, his terms, or his words.
So to clarify, this is April 9th when you're calling him.
Actually, sir, the way the recording starts, I would most likely suggest he contacted me. That's why I did, because typically if I make a phone call to somebody, I'll start it with the date and the time. So this is probably Mr. Uible calling me back, and then I started recording after he calls me.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. So April 9th. Mr. Uible mentions that he's talked to Greg Simpson a couple times, and that previous day, he was made aware that the sheriff's office was washing their hands of this. Is that what he said?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I'm confused by that because that's not what I explained to him. I told him that, we were working with the post office down in Cincinnati, the postal inspector. I told him that the proper channel per the ORC that we can see. I mean, I don't deal with mail fraud or whatever he's alleging on a regular basis. And the one section in ORC that we can find, it says that it has to be referred to the state election committee first. They do their investigation, and then they'll contact the local prosecutor's office if there's violation of law. So by no means did I tell Mr. Simpson that we are washing our hands of it, or that someone else had told me that he says that he's been cleared of any wrongdoings. That's also not accurate, because honestly, I don't even know if I have any wrongdoings that's been reported. I just have the report that he made. A slate, you said it's a slate. I'm catching up on the terms, but basically a slate flyer had gone out that wasn't approved by the Republican Party, I guess, in the simplest terms. And he's denying any knowledge or any approval of that going out. He says that for that, because the flyer itself.
Yeah, I don't know why.
What's it doing?
When it's green over there, it was black for a second, it's blue for a second, and it's interfering with it too. And I don't know why it's doing that.
The computer screen is flickering coincidentally at the same time the audio goes out. This computer screen, so it doesn't have to do with that.
My microphone or whatever you want to do.
I'm going to ask Nathan to come down.
Every time these screens flicker, the audio goes out and right back. Okay.
I text stuff.
He's coming down now. Hold on, I'll switch it. I got to switch it from prosecutor to defense. Hold on.
It's approved by the Republican Party and funded by the Republican Party. Obviously, apparently that's not the case. They're saying they didn't pay for it, they didn't authorize it. So what I've done as a dumb investigator, just trying to think, okay, well, how can I figure this out, is I went directly to the printing company that the Republican Party used to see if anybody went ahead and made this purchase for these cards. So that's led me to a couple other places. I talked to Mr. Ken Hare at a place in Union Township, and he says that, and provided me emails where there's correspondence between you and him about ordering some of these flyers. However, and the emails say that you were directed by Greg Simpson to do this, but I guess Greg Simpson was contacted and he said, no, don't do it because it wasn't voted upon. Is that accurate?
Dr. Berger?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I kind of missed you there. I thought I lost.
In the emails he sent me,
Feel free, Nathan, to go ahead and...
The screen flickers both HDMI
Is it recording okay, John?
Right.
A request from you, saying, or an inquiry about ordering 15 to 25,000 of these flyers and asking for a quote on price. But then there was some confusion where he contacted Mr. Simpson. Mr. Simpson said it hadn't been approved and not to place that order until he got back to him. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay, so then I've been in contact with another company, a guy named Jay Heidemann, who says that around March 30th or 31st that you asked for a quote for the same number of cards. However, you were able to find it accurate.
That's correct.
Which company, did you in fact place an order for these cards?
No, I did not. But
Can we play the part that skipped? Yeah. I know you're not, I mean, the thing keeps skipping, but there was a line there that skipped. Yes.
Any suggestions? We could take a recess. Is that right, sir?
Yeah, that's fine. Just let me know when you have it fixed.
All right, we're in recess. A lot of you.
would that be later this afternoon or sometime after 2:30 or something? But is it something we can handle by phone?
Yeah, if you're willing to. I shut my door here. I'm sorry. I had to shut my office door here. It's just me that's on the phone here. So basically, you probably already heard about what's going on or why I need to call you, but
Well, I haven't actually. I just heard from Greg Simpson that I guess slate card went out to some of the voters, and Greg called me, and then he called me again yesterday. Greg seems to call me about every day.
right.
But yesterday he said that apparently the sheriff's office has washed their hands of it. His terms, sir, his words. So.
Well, yeah, and I'm confused by that because that's not what I explained to him. I told him that we were working with the post office down in Cincinnati, the postal inspector. I told him that the proper channel per the ORC that we can see. I mean, I don't deal with mail fraud or whatever he's alleging on a regular basis, and the one section in ORC that we can find. It says that it has to be referred to the state election committee first. They do their investigation, and then they'll contact the local prosecutor's office if there's a violation of law. So by no means did I tell Mr. Simpson that we are washing our hands of it, or that someone else had told me that he says that he's been cleared of any wrongdoings. That's also not accurate, because honestly I don't even know if I have any wrongdoings that's been reported. I just have the report that he made. So basically the report that he made says that a slate, you said it's a slate, I'm catching up on the terms, but basically a slate flyer had gone out that wasn't approved by the Republican Party, I guess in the simplest terms. And he's denying any knowledge or by the Republican Party and funded by the Republican Party. Well, obviously apparently that's not the case. They're saying they didn't pay for it, they didn't authorize it. So what I've done as a dumb investigator, just think, okay, well, how can I figure this out? Is I went directly to the printing company that the Republican Party used to see if anybody went ahead and made this purchase for these cards. So that's led me to a couple other places. I talked to Mr. Ken Hare at a place in Union Township, and he says that, and provided me emails where there's correspondence between you and him about ordering some of these flyers. However, and the emails say that you were directed by Greg Simpson to do this, but I guess Greg Simpson was contacted and he said, no, don't do it because it wasn't voted upon. Is that accurate?
Sergeant Berger?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I kind of missed you there. I thought I lost you. Sorry.
No, what I was saying is that Ken Hare, in the emails he sent me, he basically said he received a request from you, saying, or an inquiry about ordering 15 to 25,000 of these flyers and asking for a quote on price. But then there was some confusion where he contacted Mr. Simpson. Mr. Simpson said it hadn't been approved and not to place that order until he got back to him. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay, so and I've been in contact with another company, a guy named Jay Heidemann, who says that around March 30th or 31st that you asked for a quote for the same number of cards. However, you were able to find it about $200 cheaper with another company. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Which company? Did you in fact place an order for these cards?
No, I did not. But later, I I told, was it Heidemann? Forget the name of his company, Peerless, I think it was.
It is.
But I think I went back on later and said that I found it cheaper, but we did not go through with it. We could not get approval from the committee because we were going to try to do a last minute. We were really under the gun to get this done. So I was trying to get these quotes in place and get things going because we were supposed to have a meeting to approve it. And it would have been easily approved simply because I made phone calls to everybody on the executive committee that would have voted for it.
Right.
So I was basically trying to make sure because when the Secretary of State decided to postpone things, all of a sudden he started sending out postcards to people who haven't voted, letting them know that they could vote. But we were kind of behind the gun in the executive committee to approve this postcard. So I was trying to get everything lined up. So when we got the thing done, when you want to print something, it's going to take you 5 days to 10 days to get something put together, and that's what Ken Hare told me. So I was just setting that up. Simpson said that was probably a good thing to do, but in the end, we couldn't meet because of the coronavirus, and then later, Greg said, well, let's meet and have a conference call, and we can make the motion on the phone call. And then later, Greg says, well, we couldn't do that either, at which point everything stopped.
Right.
So I think I told Jay, I think I haven't emailed him, or it was another group that I asked the price from, that we weren't going to go through with it, even though we had a cheaper price someplace else. But I think another place that I had asked for pricing was Staples down on Reading Road. Kind of works for me. His wife is the manager there. So.
here's I guess I don't think there's a problem with the cards being ordered and purchased because that you can buy whatever you want. The problem is where the cards get sent out, and it's my understanding what happens is these are called chaser flyers, where someone requests an absentee ballot, and every couple of days, certain people get a copy of those people who requested those absentee ballots, and then the Republican Party will send out these ballots to kind of assist with voting or let people know who the endorsed candidates are. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's a chaser, we call it.
Okay. So it sounds to me like someone somehow there had to be a lack of a break in communication, or someone got overzealous, because these chasers did end up getting sent out to people, and I have at least a couple copies where a person wasn't even on the list until April 2nd around noontime, and then they are sent a flyer on April 3rd. Now we believe that these were all sent directly from the bulk mail department at the Dalton post office. So I contacted the postal inspector there, and they told me it's going to take a couple of days to get, but they think they can track down if these were sent down there, because I guess they have to. There's going to be a log. Someone would have had to come in and maybe sign something. There could be video of who dropped these flyers off, this and that. So we're going to find that. My goal, though, or my purpose is to try to speed things up, is just to try to establish, okay, first of all, who printed these off, or which company printed these off, or who paid for this, because then, let's say, for instance, you contacted Staples and you said, hey, I want to place this order, however, that's it. Could it be possible that someone then, not knowing or didn't realize, sent these out without authorization? I mean, I don't see there's a problem with them being printed off or paid for. It just becomes an issue, obviously, when it wasn't voted upon. I think you understand probably more than I do what I'm trying to explain. But I'm trying to find out, where these cards originated from. And like I said, at this point, in all fairness, the only person who I've even been told inquired about purchasing these cards from two different companies is you. That's why I wanted to talk to you and say, hey, did you in fact purchase these? And if you did, where are they? Is somebody else in charge of those cards? And could that person have sent these out by mistake, not realizing that there wasn't approval yet? I mean, there could be an explanation for this. But at first, we need to find out who paid for these chasers and where they came from.
Yeah, I told Greg, as well as Jeannie Zarmley, who is our treasurer. I told Rick Grant, who's our vice chairman of the party, and maybe somebody else, that we should not be sending these out without approval, because of the fact that I am chasing with my own card. We are doing that, and I have basically a 6x11 David Uible for office card, which is being chased in 4 counties. So we are doing that bulk mail.
Okay. Well, like I said, our issue, or what we've been asked to do, is just a specific. I think it's like a 4x6 card to try to figure that out. Because obviously, and what you're saying, like I said, I don't see a problem with someone ordering these and paying for them. And I understand that there was. And what you're saying, like I said, I don't see a problem with someone ordering these and paying for them. And I understand that there was a meeting scheduled for April 1st. So if these cards were ordered and paid for prior to April 1st, I don't see that being an issue. I also agree with you, because I've talked to several people that said, hey, had there been a meeting April 1st, there would have been a vote, and the vote would have passed. Even people who opposed it say that. So they said, but that's the way to do it. However, that meeting was canceled. So these cards end up going out anyway, and the problem with them is they do say endorsed by the Republican Party, paid for by the Republican Party, and they're addressed back to the Republican Party with Greg Simpson's name on it. So again, my job is to find out I don't know how many there were, but there were some cards that were sent out. I don't know how many at this point, but I have at least a couple in my possession. And again, the person who received it was not on the chaser list until April 2nd. So my question was just, okay, if I can track down who ordered and paid for these cards, I can find out where they are and who has them, because maybe if there was 25,000 paid for and ordered, maybe only 100%, I don't know. But I need to find out, and I was hoping to do that quicker than the post office. I'm pretty confident the post office is going to give me the answer as to who mailed these. But I need to find out who purchased these cards and where they are. And like I said, at this point, and just being fair, you're the only person who has inquired with companies about purchasing these cards.
Correct. Yeah. Well, that's true. But as I said, I did that just to kind of head off so we could save time.
But you did not have any knowledge. Is it fair to say you don't have any knowledge of these cards being purchased or ordered or printed or mailed? Any of those things, as we've discussed, that I'm dealing with?
That's correct.
Okay. Any idea? Like I said, any idea who may have gone ahead?
I believe our whole party, we've got 160, as many as 170 members of the Central Committee, Republican Central Committee, and that's our goal, is to endorse candidates and send out slate cards like this to get the candidates elected. And I know a couple weeks before, I don't know when it was, up till rather volatile, and people were because I understand that everybody that's on that endorsed list benefits from this flyer going out. I understand that. It's advertisements and it's an endorsement. Like I said, my point though was, obviously that narrows it down for some, because those candidates would benefit the most. But then you can also narrow it down even further than that, because only a few people on that list, or those candidates, get the chaser list. So whoever had these cards printed and made, it would have been worthless to them unless they had the chaser list. And that's my point, is that it does make sense as far as this. And my guess is, if I had to offer an explanation here, is my guess is these were sent out
just because they anticipated it would have been approved. And like I said, everybody tells me that, yes, these would have been approved had it been, there would have been a vote. You may have had some people vote against it because they're not endorsed, but they're still running as Republicans. But it would have still gone through. However, there was never a vote, and that's why it's a problem. So,
yeah, well, I think Claremont County's Board of Elections send out about twice a week the list of Excel sheet of who is asked for the mail-in ballots. And I get that along with maybe 10, 12, 15 other people on that list.
right. So you understand my way to then narrow down even further who.
Sure.
So it's now down to 12 people. Go ahead.
We're using that because I'm chasing with my 6 by 11 inch card that I'm using. So, yeah, I mean, I am chasing, but that's with my own card.
Sure. So that, and like I said, I mean, in fairness, and the reason why I wanted to talk to you was, again, not to keep repeating myself, but at this point, the only person who has shown any interest in purchasing these 4x6 cards through at least 2 companies at this point is you. So I'm just trying to verify that you did not, in fact, purchase these cards from another company. Like I said, I'm pretty confident that the post office is going to be able to assist us in where these generated from. And like I said, if there's an explanation for it, I think it's better to get it out there now. If there's a miscommunication or something, then others saying, well, hey, we asked, there was a denial of of knowledge, and now, well, here's evidence that someone did, in fact, send these out. So,
something else to think about it is the slate card that Greg sent me. He sent me a copy of what he got in the mail from somebody else, but it was widely distributed. That PDF file was widely distributed among all Republican Central Committee meetings, our members, and we were all encouraged to text it to friends and family and everybody else. So that image was widely distributed among everybody. It was even on multiple websites, including Claremont County's website. So I think that's, wasn't like some kind of proprietary knowledge that I had. It was something that was distributed everywhere. It was public record, put it that way.
Yeah, and the print is very close to what was actually designed at both locations. There is 1 or 2 minor discrepancies on the front of the card where there's the elephant is supposed to be red, white, and blue. However, on the card that was sent out, it's black. And then there's supposed to be a disclaimer on there that says your official voting guide or something along those lines. It doesn't appear on this card that was sent out. So, like I said, I don't even know at the end of the day when I do find out, who's responsible for these, what involvement, if any, the sheriff's office has, or what kind of even things we could look into. Like I said, that's why we've contacted the post office, and that's also why Mr. Simpson was referred to the State Election Commission, because the only ORC we see that even applies says that the state commission has to conduct the investigation first, and then would contact us later. So I appreciate your time, sir. If anything else comes up or any other details you think of that may be helpful, I'd appreciate. And I appreciate, you taking my call.
Yeah, just as a note, Greg Simpson did offer to give me $1,000 to send this out, and I told Greg, basically in no uncertain terms, Greg, we can't do that without approval from the executive committee.
When did Greg offer you $1,000 to send them out?
I don't think Greg knew that it was withdrawn because he is chairman of the party, but I guess having been former chairman myself, I understood the implications of that, but it was probably 10 days ago. It was before it was the day, maybe Monday, a week ago. We were supposed to be meeting last Wednesday to approve this as execs, and when Greg called me to say we probably can't meet.
But you're saying prior to that scheduled meeting, he had offered or was going to give you $1,000 to order these?
Yeah, I mean, he was making a contribution. He said, hey, I'll give you $1,000 if you go ahead and do this.
Well, which makes sense with the email chain that I have with Mr. Hare, because you tell Mr. Hare that you're quoting the prices, and you say that Greg Simpson told you to go ahead and take care of it.
Sure.
And then I think after a couple of emails that of the proof and stuff like that, Mr. Hare had actually said to you, respectfully, when you were the chair, I only dealt with you and only took orders from you. And that's when he contacted Mr. Simpson, and Mr. Simpson said to hold off on the order until there was approval. So that all corroborates.
Yeah, at which point Ken got back to me and said that in our email, and I said, I understand, no problem, Ken. At which point then I also sent a text, or not a text, but I replied to an email from the guy at Drum Springs saying, effectively, we're not going to do this. We could not get approval from the committee. So.
Yeah, he said that, and also he said that you'd further mentioned that you had found someone to do the job $200 cheaper than what he was quoting, is what he told me.
Correct.
And that was the Staples company?
Staples, I believe so. Yeah. I think they were hurting for business or something. I'm not sure, but.
And you mentioned that someone that you know works for Staples?
Yeah, the guy, somebody who works for me, his wife works there. So.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, I appreciate your time. If anything else, you think of anything else, I'd appreciate a call back. This is my cell phone number, the best way to reach me, so I appreciate it.
Great.
All right, take care, sir. All right. Have a good day. Bye. 10:39 a.m. on.
All those people. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that's what you asked.
I did not add.
Oh.
Guys. When you spoke with Mr. Uible and you had asked him if he had done it, did he also offer, in addition to saying it wasn't him, did he also offer who might it have been? By way of saying it could have been anyone in the party, 160 or so members?
Yes, sir.
Did he also advise that it could have been anyone in the public because they...
Object, are you talking about what was in the statement?
Yes.
You're not object, I mean, the statement's the statement.
I am asking him about the statement, but it's a 17-minute call. We had issues with the audio. I just want to clarify what was said.
Is that part of what was in the statement?
Yes, this is all, he's just going through the statement now,
Sustained.
to ask him if that's what was said.
Sustained.
Yes, sir. So after that call, what did you then do to help determine who sent these mailers?
I then began calling Staples locations to see if I could identify the responsible parties.
Did you call other printers as well?
I did.
How did you arrive at who to call?
Can you verify, how do I?
Yeah,
Fine.
so you said you called printers. I mean, did you call them because of how their names sounded or how close they were in proximity?
So I just started calling places that I knew of along Beachmont who might print. I think there's Kinko's, whatever that is. And then ultimately I just did a Google search of the top 10 places to print near the zip code 4103.
Was one of those places Minuteman Press?
It was.
Did you speak with a Kendall Lemley?
Yes, sir.
I'm certainly not going to get into what you and Mr. Lemley talked about. He did testify. But we heard of a plan to call David Uible. Can you tell me a little bit about when you were at Minuteman Press and this idea that you had to call David Uible again?
So once I made contact with Mr. Lemley, I confirmed at that point that Mr. Uible had in fact printed, ordered, paid for, and sent out the flyers that I was asking about. So I knew he had lied to me. So I wanted to give him another opportunity to explain what happened. I get to complete my answer earlier, and I don't think I can, about what I was trying to establish when I was talking to Mr. Uible on the phone. But when I called him back from the store, I wanted to confront him again because now I did have information. Now I knew he was the person that had done it, and I want to give him a chance to give me an explanation as to why or what the situation was.
You sometimes, in your interviews, when you were a detective, offer suspects or targets a way out by giving them excuses?
Objection.
Sustained.
In this particular case, at this point in the investigation, did you suspect that David Uible was the one who sent these mailers out?
Objection.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, we're just progressing through the investigation here. We're trying to explain why this officer asked these questions, in fact, giving an out to the defendant, to which he did not take. Your Honor, the defendant has made a statement through his counsel, an opening statement, and throughout some cross-examinations yesterday, that he was doing this just to hide from a Chris Hicks. The officer has given him outs. They told him whether it was an accident. All of this. And he's not taking it. This goes directly to this alleged defense that he's claiming.
So what he was trying to do is not relevant. What he did is relevant. Sustained.
So you're out there and you talked about doing this call. What did you decide to do?
As I stated, at that point, I knew Mr. Uible had lied to me, so I wanted to get more information. And I knew that, I suspected that if I called Mr. Uible, that would prompt a call.
You know, I object. I mean, now he's telling what he thought, what he speculated, what he assumed would happen. I mean, in the end, he called Uible again. I mean, play the tape.
We're not offering this point for substantive evidence. We're explaining the steps of an officer. This is typical in any trial to allow an officer to explain the steps that they took. We don't want to just jump straight to a call. We need to understand the context and the reason.
No, you don't. You can go straight to the call. The objection is sustained.
You place a call to David Uible.
Yes, sir.
Showing it was marked as State's Exhibit 26.
1:58 p.m. on Friday, April 10, 2000.
Whose voice is that?
That's fine, sir.
Sergeant Berger out at Minuteman Press, 8550 Beachmont Avenue. Also present, Kendall Limley. We're going to be trying to call David Uible at 513-260-0296.
The number that you dialed, what you said that belonged to David Uible. Do you know what kind of number that was? I mean, was it a landline, a mobile phone?
My answer would only be, I would be guessing or assuming.
Okay, I don't want you to guess. All right.
David Uible.
Hey, Mr. Uible, how are you doing? This is Sergeant Berger from the Sheriff's Office.
Yes, Sergeant.
Hey, just, do you have 1 minute, sir?
I do, sure.
So, I'm going through my notes. I'm trying to update this report that I'm working on. And I remember you telling me that you had gotten some quotes for the postcard, and it was never approved or anything like that. But you also mentioned that you were having a flyer done, a chase done for yourself.
Yeah, and that's where I got a better price from that company.
However, I don't remember you telling me where that was. Where did you find that better price?
It was Minuteman Printing
Okay.
and Anderson, maybe.
Okay, but you did place an order with them for your chasers.
They are doing my chasers currently, correct.
Okay. Now, did you ask them for a quote on the postcards?
They were one of the three, maybe four, I guess. I asked Ken Hare as well. But then the other three people was Peerless, Staples, and Minuteman.
Right.
Correct.
But you did you place an order for those postcards with Minuteman?
I did place an order to do my personal cards, correct.
Right, but what about the postcards that are in question?
No, I said I was not involved with that at all. We did not place it because we did not get the approval from this executive committee.
Okay, I just, again, not to keep going over, I'm going over my notes, just want to make sure that I have everything accurate. So, I'm going to continue. I appreciate you providing the information, and if you have any other questions, just give me a call.
Will do.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stop the recording at 2 minutes and 36 seconds. When you initially called David Uible the day before, and the day before that, did you call his cell phone number?
I believe so. I believe that was the only number I had was the 260 number.
Okay, the 260 number.
Yes, sir.
Now, that phone call, do you recall what time it started? I think it said at the beginning. I apologize if I didn't ask you that, but I can play it again. Do you recall what time it
If I
was?
refer to my report, I've
Yeah.
there, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'll help refresh your memory, absolutely. I don't think it's in your report, but
It's not, sir.
does 158 sound about right for the start of the call?
Objection.
I understand that that is a leading question, but I'm just trying to skip to the chase. I can play the recording again, allow him to recall when it was recorded, or I can ask that question. So
The tape says when it was
Objection is sustained.
all right. So if the tape said that the call began at 1:58 and it ended about 2.5 minutes into the call, about what time did the call conclude?
Approximately 2 o'clock or 2:01 p.m.
What happened within a minute or so of that call ending?
Mr. Uible called Mr. Winmore.
Was that call recorded?
Yes, it was.
Did he call from a different number than the one you called him on?
Yes, sir.
I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Croswell, go ahead. Right ahead.
Your Honor, I have no questions.
You have no questions?
I have no questions.
Major Berger, you can step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, the state does not have any additional witnesses. I'd like to potentially go through some housekeeping matters with the evidence, and then I might rest at that moment.
Okay. What exhibits are you offering?
Can I confer with counsel for a moment?
Sure.
But you marked as 33. Let me.
Well, we can go.
You want to take 5 or 10 minutes just to talk and see if you can reach agreement on exhibits? Okay, that's fine. In fact, perhaps we should take our lunch recess now, and you can.
Before we do, we did have a stipulation to offer to the court.
Okay.
I have a signed copy. I can give it to the bailiff if you prefer, or I can read it out loud to the court. Now it's short.
So you can read it and then you can give it to the bailiff. That's fine.
State of Ohio and the defendant, through his counsel Scott Croswell, hereby notify the court the parties have agreed to the following stipulations to be presented during the trial in this matter. The following facts are stipulated: that Michaela Marie Sargent received Exhibit 1 by the United States Postal Service mail on or after April 3rd, 2020. That Terry J. Huber received Exhibit 2 by United States Postal Service mail on or after April 3rd, 2020. That Otto Huber received Exhibit 3 by United States Postal Service mail on or after April 3rd, 2020. That John Tyler McGraw received Exhibit 4 by United States Postal Service mail on or after April 3rd, 2020. And the stipulation goes on to agree to the admissibility and authenticity of those reference exhibits, Exhibits 1 through 4.
I assume the defense is stipulating to those facts?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you very much. You want time to discuss with Mr. Croswell the exhibits?
I have no objection to the exhibits, Your Honor.
Okay.
Before I announce this, may I just do one last check?
Sure. Well, thank you. That's good.
All right, sir. The state offers, would you like me to go one by one or give groups?
If you could, one by one, that would be fine.
Exhibit 1,
Any objection?
No.
Admitted?
Exhibit 2, which is a chaser mailed to Terry Huber.
No.
Admitted?
Exhibit 3, which is a chaser mailed to Otto Huber.
No.
No, meaning you're not.
No, no objection. I'm sorry.
3 will be admitted.
Exhibit 4, chaser mailed to John McGraw.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 5, an email from David Uible to various recipients regarding the meeting for April. We'll just leave it at that.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 8, an email from Greg Simpson to various recipients.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 9, an email exchange between Ken Hare and David Uible.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 10, an email exchange between David Uible and Kendall Lemley.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 11, an email from Kendall Lemley to David Johnson.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 12, an email from Kendall Lemley to David Johnson.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 13, an email from Kendall Lemley to David Johnson.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 14, an email from Kendall Lemley to David Johnson.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 15, an email exchange between David Uible and Kendall Lemley.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 16, an email from Kendall Lemley to David Johnson.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 17, an email exchange between Greg Simpson and Chris Hicks.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 18, an email exchange between Greg Simpson and Chris Hicks.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 19, an email exchange between Ken Hare and Greg Simpson.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 24, the Claremont County Republican Party's endorsement procedure.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 25, which is the April 9th phone call recorded interview of David Uible.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 26, which is the April 10th phone call from Sergeant Berger to David Uible.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 27, which is David Uible's phone call to Kendall Lemley.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 28, which is the Constitution of the Republican Party of Claremont County.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 29, which is a Minuteman Press Flex screenshot for walk-in clients.
No objection.
Admitted?
Exhibit 30, which is a Minuteman Press Flex screenshot of David Uible's customer card.
No objection.
Admitted?
And Exhibit 32, the Uible campaign chaser.
No objection.
Admitted? Is there anything else?
I just want to check my notes real quick, sir.
Sure. Mr. Walters was asking about 33.
33 is not offered.
Okay. So all the ones, John, that are not admitted, obviously, are either they're not being offered.
Yes, sir.
Everything has been agreed to that was admitted, so anything else is not offered.
Yes.
Okay.
That he was doing a service to the party. No, he wasn't. That's absurd. If it was service to the party would have done it. The party would have accepted it. The party would have authorized it. They would have spent the money. He was doing a service to himself and the other one or two candidates that didn't have the backing of the state central committee. deception. So knowingly obtain some benefit by deception. Deception means knowingly deceiving another or causing another to be deceived by any false or misleading representation, amongst other things. Well, he knowingly deceived others by a false or misleading representation. Specifically, the court has seen that postcard says, paid for by the Claremont County Republican Party. That's false and misleading. It has the return address or the sender's address as Greg Simpson and the Claremont County Republican Party. That is false and misleading. It is false and misleading because he was aware of it. He sought the executive committee's authority and approval, but they did not do so. So he wanted to do it on his own, and he surely wanted it to appear as if they had done it. It's critical to understand that we have a great foil, a great example to compare his illegal chaser to his legitimate chaser. His legitimate chaser, Exhibit 32, I believe, says David Uible, endorsed candidate, Republican Party, running for this candidacy, state senate. But critically, where it says paid for and where it says that return addressee, that sender, it says paid for by David Uible. Some address on State Route 132 in New Richmond, Ohio. His address, where he lives. That is appropriate. So, seeing what he clearly knows how to do it the right way, he does it the wrong way. So he's doing that because he wants the imprimatur, the auspices, the approval of the party to do this. That is why he's doing it. He will claim, or has claimed, that he isn't doing this to be deceptive, that he was doing this to help the party, or thought it would be retroactively approved. But I asked the court to keep in mind that he did it throughout. He was lying throughout. He was not open and honest. He did not tell anyone what he was doing, anyone that he trusted or anyone that was in the confidence of those other individuals of the executive committee. And additionally, it wasn't going to be retroactive because you heard from Greg Simpson that it didn't have the votes. And it didn't have the votes. After a year, it still didn't have the votes. There was no retroactive approval. So when we focus on now that the second element, the one that distinguishes the 6 different ways forgery is charged, it is in counts 4 through 7, specifically in uttering, that the defendant uttered or possessed with the purpose to utter any writing known to have been forged. So understanding that we have a forged document, he did issue, publish, transfer, use, or put or send into circulation, deliver, or display that forged document. Specifically exhibits 1 through 4. There's a stipulation that acknowledges that these circulated in the mail. We have witness testimony saying that those were the ones that they pushed out, that they sent. So these 4 utterings represent the thousands that he sent out. I don't believe there's any question that that element of uttering has been met. With regard to now counts 2 and 3. 2 and 3 are slightly distinguished. Specifically, count 2 is that he forged another's writing without that person's authority. So forge means to fabricate, create, in whole or in part, and by any means, any spurious writing. Well, he did fabricate and create, in part, this writing. Not in whole. Again, that front side, excuse me, that back side was permissible. There were no inaccuracies in that backside necessarily. But he understands that he did not have the authority to do so. He didn't have the authority to do so because, one, Greg Simpson told him he can't. Two, the Constitution says he can't. Three, the endorsement policy says he can't. Both of those say that the executive committee holds the purse strings, that the executive committee holds the authority to publish and distribute. So he can't do either without their permission. He's been in the party for decades. He knows this. In addition, Greg Simpson told him he couldn't. And then he has the audacity to tell the investigator that he told other people that he can't do it, or that they can't do it. Told Greg Simpson he can't do it. Jeannie Zermerly, the other individuals he mentioned on that, Peerless Printing. With respect to the forgery in count 3, the second element is that the forger writing so that it purports to be an act of another, though actually unauthorized. This specifically relates to how that postcard is designed. He puts the sender as the Claremont County Republican Party, not his own address like he did for his other mailings. He is the one who made, but also, as defined by forged, reproduce. So he cannot make, alter, execute, or complete, or reproduce, or otherwise purport to authenticate any writing when that writing is in fact not authenticated by that conduct. So he's either making or reproducing this card, again, the alleged authority of the party, Greg Simpson, but is doing so without. When evaluating these last few elements, Your Honor, please, again, refer to that recorded call. He says things like, we couldn't get the motion passed, so we're not going to print it. He says, I told him basically we couldn't get the motion passed. He goes on to mention that 7 times in that one phone call that he couldn't get the approval to get it done. Keep in mind that he has the audacity to believe that law enforcement is not going to catch up to him. He says that the Detective Berger has no idea what happened. Could have been in bulk mail. Could have been in Singapore. He has no clue. Your Honor, the defendant knew better, and that's why he's sneaking around and being deceitful and lying. He knew, and that is why we'll ask you to find him guilty and to hold him accountable for his conduct. Thank you.
Mr. Croswell, you may make your argument.
Your Honor, I would suggest to the court that there's not been one scintilla of proof offered that any of these offenses occurred in Claremont County, the state of Ohio. And that is the most basic of elements that must be proven here to give this court both jurisdiction and venue to hear this case. As I said here and listened to the testimony, I was somewhat, I suppose, surprised and even amused when Mr. Lemley indicated when they asked him, where'd all this take place? Where'd this take place? And where's your business? And his reply was 8550 Beachmont Avenue, Anderson Township. Traditionally, people would go on to say that it's in Hamilton County, Cincinnati, state of Ohio, or whatever. The prosecution knows that this is a fatal flaw, I believe, in the case. And why they chose to bring this action in Claremont County, I don't know. When all of the activity that's referred to, assuming it did happen, occurred in Hamilton County, or it's not known where it occurred. For instance, Detective Barger tells us that he had 3 phone calls with David Uible. He does not suggest to even know where David Uible was when he made the phone calls that he allegedly made misstatements or untruthful statements in. David Uible could have been in the state of Kentucky. David Uible could have been in Alaska. David Uible could have been in Moscow, Russia, for all Borger knows. Borger also has not told you where he was when those phone calls took place, with the exception of telling you that 1 or 2 of the calls took place when he was in Hamilton County. So as a starting point, the record is completely void of any testimony that would let a trier of the fact believe that anything in relation to these falsifications occurred in Claremont County or even the state of Ohio. While that may seem to some as a petty argument, the realities are those are elements of the offense that's charged here. An element is that it occurred in Claremont County, Ohio. There is no proof that that is what occurred. In relation to the tampering charges, that all occurred, if it occurred. The conversations, the actions, everything occurred at 8550 Minuteman Press in Hamilton County, Ohio. Now, we would have asked the court to take judicial notice of where it is, but Mr. King has acknowledged in his closing argument that, in fact, Minuteman Press is in Hamilton County, Ohio. That's where the discussions, any discussions that are provable as to where they occurred. That's where any actions occurred, in Hamilton County, Ohio. Again, any phone calls that were had or not had in this case, there is no indication of where those phone calls were made from, and it would be pure speculation to guess otherwise. The same thing is true of the uttering charges. There is no evidence in the record whatsoever that David Uible uttered these documents. It's really not even been testified to. But just as importantly, there's no evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that he had any purpose whatsoever to defraud anyone when he had truthful documents reproduced himself. Documents that were accurate, documents which were truthful, documents which the evidence showed were on the website of the Claremont County Republican Party, where members were encouraged to download those documents and to distribute them to their constituents and their fellow voters. If we were standing here today and David Uible had altered in substance that document, then I would believe, that it was a crime. But what he did was he simply broadcast what was true, that these are the endorsed candidates for the Republican Party. There's been some discussion here of Chris Hicks, and I believe that Mr. Simpson testified as to the impact that Hicks had on David Uible. And I would agree that timing here is important. It's only after April 5th that David Uible did anything to discuss the destruction or altering of documents. Prior to April 5th, he had a conversation with Mr. Limley where he said, let's keep this on the down low. Let's keep this between us. Let's not tell anybody we're doing this. If anybody asks, don't tell them. That's not altering or destroying the document. That may be asking someone to tell the truth or not tell the truth, but it's not altering or destroying a document. It's only after April 5th that it's alleged Mr. Uible had a conversation with Limley that ultimately went to Johnson about let's not have any record of these things. That's their testimony, not mine. Johnson himself says that he destroyed the things a couple of days before Borger even showed up at the store, which is an indication, I believe, and certainly raises doubt, that Mr. Uible was acting in relation to his fear that Hicks would find out, as opposed to anyone else finding out. And the statute says, in relation to the forgery, that Uible had to do this with either the purpose to defraud or knowing that he was defrauding someone. Not knowingly, or not that he should have known or could have known, but that he in fact knew when he had these things printed, he was committing a fraud to the detriment of someone. This case, as in all cases, has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and I would be the last one to lecture the court on what reasonable doubt is. And when I make the following statement, I don't mean to be flip, but I suspect that what the state of Ohio is going to ask the trier of fact, that being the court, to do is to take a leap of faith and in some way analyze this case to try to determine, number one, what was in my client's mind, to try to determine in some fashion where the fraud is, but more importantly, to ask the court to conjure some theory of how the state has venue or has proven venue in this case. If it doesn't matter whether Claremont County is involved in this, the crime did not occur then. The crime occurred, if there is a crime, when David Uible went to Minuteman Press in Hamilton County, Ohio, and by way of the testimony, asked them to do something illegal, according to the testimony, according to the state's theory. That's when the crime was committed, right then and there at Minuteman Press in Hamilton County, Ohio. When David Uible went and asked them to print the documents. He asked them to print the documents and was in Minuteman Press in Hamilton County, Ohio when he did that. There's no proof of where he was, or where Borger was, for that matter, when they had their tape conversations. When and clearly the prosecution understood that venue was an issue because they brought it up. And I have little doubt that the prosecution understood why I didn't question witnesses. It wasn't for lack of questioning or lack of effort or lack of trying. It was because, at least in my mind, I believed that the state had not and could not prove venue because, in fact, there is no venue. It didn't occur here. It's not from a standpoint of lack of trying by the state. It simply didn't happen here. There is no proof. When I defend a case, what I initially do is I prosecute in my own mind. And I look up and I try to determine what evidence is available, readily available, to prove each element of the crime. If I can't prove each element of the crime with the readily available evidence, what can I go find? What evidence can I find? What can I do to try to further my proof? And once I do that and build what I would hope is the perfect prosecution case in my own mind, I then try to answer the questions that are raised in relation to the prosecution case to try to have the answers for the things that I would raise as a prosecutor. Well, the most basic thing that you do, obviously, is start out and say, can I prove venue? And I'm not lecturing the court. In every case that the court has ever heard, there's been a witness that said that this occurred in such and such Ohio, Claremont County, Ohio. Such and such a place, Claremont County, Ohio. Such and such a place, Claremont County, Ohio. Well, the prosecutor didn't have that here, and if I were the prosecutor, I wouldn't have had it either. But what I would have tried to do, instead of just asking the court to speculate about different things, is I would have tried to determine if there was a way to prove the venue through evidence. I would have tried to determine evidentially, for instance, whether Mr. Mr. Uible was in Claremont County during the commission of any of these offenses. They're referencing phone calls. Well, did those phone calls were they generated in Claremont County, Ohio? Is that something that could have been easily or readily proven? They indicate that there are email trails back and forth. Did those email trails, were they generated or produced in Claremont County, Ohio? They don't even have any proof that Mr. Uible traveled that was even in Claremont County during this period of time, and that he traveled to Hamilton County. The only proof you have that he was in a place was that he was in Kentucky, driving across the bridge into Ohio. So what I'm suggesting to the court is that venue is something that has to be proven in a court of law, but also has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And I believe, in my own mind, it has to be proven by testimony, which is given from the witness stand by witnesses. The testimony is clear. These events all occurred either in Hamilton County or parts unknown. And it's also clear that the state cannot establish that Mr. Uible had an intent to defraud anyone when he reproduced an accurate document which was on a Republican website for the purpose of being downloaded by party members so that they could distribute it to their fellow voters. With that in mind, Your Honor, I believe that the state of Ohio has failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt each and every element of this case. And as a result of that, my client should be acquitted. Thank you, sir.
Mr. King?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm glad Mr. Croswell approaches cases that way. But to suggest that the state needs to know exactly where David Uible is at every moment is disingenuous. To suggest that we need some sort of geofence to see exactly where he is when he types an email is disingenuous. As the court is aware, 2901.12, which explains venue for the state of Ohio, in particular Division A, says where the offense occurs or any element of the offense occurs. Well, the purpose to defraud is Claremont County. You have it on nearly every exhibit, at least referencing the ballots. You have exhibits 1 through 4, which have the address of these individuals in Loveland, Felicity, Batavia. You have the address of the Claremont County Republican Party,
The purpose to defraud occurred here in Claremont County. This is where the mail allegedly originated by way of the sender's address, and this is where the mail went. The reason we have venue for what happened in Minimum Press is the course of conduct. It's the same reason why Mr. Croswell stood up here and said, well, we know Minuteman Press is in Hamilton County because of the address. Well, we have the address. Mr. Croswell said that the state's asking you to take a leap of faith with regard to this knowingly element. To get inside his head. Well, all due respect, I'm not going to ask you to take a leap of faith, sir. According to OJI, when someone acts knowingly when a person is aware that that person's conduct will probably cause a certain result or be of a certain nature. A person has knowledge of circumstances when the person is aware of that such circumstances probably exist. Right? He knew what was right and wrong. That is why he lied. To knowingly obtain some benefit. Why else would he mail these things? Why else would he create these things? Of course he knowingly did so. That was the very intent. Frankly, Your Honor, I'm not asking you to do the leap of faith, rather the smell test. This claim of him doing so with permission, with retroactive, it does not pass the smell test. We ask you to hold him guilty. Thank you.
Criminal Rule 23C says, in a case tried without a jury, the court shall make a general finding. But as you know, I generally try to give the parties more than a general finding, but give you some insight into why I make the decision that I make. And I don't have a decision made at this point, so I'm going to take the matter under advisement. We'll render a decision. I'm not sure whether it will be in writing or whether I will announce it in open court, but you will be notified accordingly, and the decision will be rendered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
All right, the court is adjourned.